I was hanging out with a much older guy the other night, and when you're my age, that's getting pretty old. And he shared some hard-won wisdom with me. He said, "You may be deceived if you trust too much, but you will be in torment if you don't trust enough." In other words, don't be too trusting, and don't be too untrusting. Maybe that's why I and so many of us connect so well with this Thomas character. I appreciate so much his hesitation to trust. It just seems prudent to me. The stuff of faith should be tested some, tested against our own lived experience, and tested against what we've learned from other people. But what I don't like about Thomas, it's what I also don't like about me and in us. It's that his doubt and his skepticism makes him want proof. He had the same good news of resurrection everybody else did. But he could not trust. He could not trust unless it was somehow proved to him. How many of us demand proof that there is God before we start taking this stuff seriously or not? Or before we surrender our hearts to that God? How many of us demand proof that you really do love me, that you really do care about me consistently before I start to take this relationship seriously in my life and I give you my heart? How much proof do we need? Proof that I will not be at risk here in the world of faith or in the world of love. And that somehow I can be guaranteed that I will not be hurt or betrayed or disappointed in the matters of God or love. My friends, the hard truth is, and maybe this is especially true for us with the Western mind, the truth is there are no proofs when it comes to faith or when it comes to love. None. And we do damage to our relationship with God and to our relationships with other people when we demand proof. When I demand somehow from you proof that you love me and you will be faithful to me. Proof that God is. You know, trust is what's required. Not proof, but trust. For sure, there are some experiences from our past that make it harder to trust or not. There are many here this morning who had trusting relationships betrayed horribly when they were young, maybe even especially by some of their own family members. But even then, and as difficult as it would be to learn to trust again, we must. We absolutely must. Let not that person who violated our trust then continue to violate us now by keeping us now from being able to trust. Let's not give them that much power anymore. And And there are experiences that make it harder to trust in faith. Because God's so elusive. The warm fuzzies aren't there like they used to be. God's so seemingly absent, and fear is getting in the way. And for sure, there are experiences that make it easier to believe, to trust. Two, that make it easier to trust that God is, or that you really do care about me, and that the love between us can somehow withstand the separation. For all those good reasons and not, the risen Christ stands before us today and says, "Blessed are you who do not see and still believe." Blessed are you who do not need proof to be able to trust. In other words, God is saying to Thomas, to Gary, and to each of us, I want you to trust. I want you to trust my goodness and the goodness of people and the reality of a risen love, no matter what you see or don't see ever, that might make it easier or harder on some days. Oh yes, he says to us, test some, poke some, poke at it with your minds and even maybe with your fingers. But at some point, you got to make a decision. At some point, you got to make a decision because it's required. You have to decide if you're going to trust or not. The truth is, we simply cannot not trust. As you've heard here before, if you've been around for a while, doubt can be a gift. Doubt can be a real gift to us. It can give us the critical edge that keeps us from taking for granted everything we're told to be true. But that same doubt that is a gift can also be Satan's greatest tool used against us. And we have gone too far with it. Now we assume that everybody is out for themselves and everybody's out to get us. The world seems to me to be getting more and more paranoid. Fear is heightening our suspicions and our cynicism about others and about the institutions in our lives. We're cynical now, skeptical, doubting about institutions like even the church, like a university, like our own government, businesses even, and about God. The damage has been done, and society and people are suffering from a crisis of trust. And it's keeping us from life, and it's keeping us from joy. And that can sever the most intimate connections of our existence and render all society dysfunctional. Can you imagine a world where people just stopped trusting? If we continue to not trust, we will miss the blessing promised to those who do trust by this risen Christ. The blessing that says, "Blessed are you who do not see but still believe. Blessed are you who do not need proof before you trust." The blessing that can only be known by those who move through their doubts, through their skepticism, through their cynicism, to trust again. Thomas had to learn that. So do we. Jesus lived that life of trust. You can see it from the beginning to the end of his life, to the last breath. He lived that life of trust. Whether he felt God close or not, he lived that life of trust. Whether people loved him back or not, Jesus trusted. And he had the scars to prove it. If you want to know how you're doing with trust, I'd like to give you a couple barometers, the best barometers I know this morning. Whether it's with God or with other people, even with your spouse. How jealous are you? How quickly do you get insecure when signs of love are absent, whether from God or from another human being? How possessive have you become over the years of your own? And where is fear? What is the amount of fear? Or the distance you keep between you and others, especially in terms of your own vulnerabilities? It gets really hard to admit sometimes how little we trust, doesn't it? We've got to make a decision. We've got to make a decision, and I'd propose there's no better time than right here in this hour and right now. We've got to make a decision again, or maybe for the very first time in our lives, that the choice to trust is worth it. Oh, for sure, never without hesitation, some. But the choice to trust is still worth it. It's worth any rejection or hurt that might come along the way, because it will. As my older friend said to me just this week, you may be deceived if you trust too much, but you will be in torment if you don't trust enough.